The travelers came across a vast and unfamiliar land. They had journeyed for many moons, and their bodies ached for a place to rest. The elders spoke with the heads of the villages they met, and a plan began to form. The travelers would work alongside the Native Americans to build small settlements where they could live in peace. In return for the use of the land, the travelers promised to share their knowledge of farming and metalworking. It was an agreement that honored the ways of both their cultures. The Native Americans had lived in harmony with the land for generations, and the travelers respected that. Using materials that the land provided, they built wooden houses with grass roofs. These became the first homes of the new people. The travelers felt a sense of belonging in these humble dwellings. The walls were strong, and the thatched roof kept them warm in the cold winters. It was a far cry from the fancy mansions some of the travelers had left behind, but it was home. As the seasons turned, the travelers and the Native Americans shared stories around fires that crackled in the night. The elders cherished these moments, for the flickering flames brought back memories of their past and gave them a sense of hope for the future. They had journeyed across the great salt water, leaving behind everything familiar, searching for a better life. And now here they were, connected by the warmth of a fire that burned brightly in the darkness. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, a young traveler named Oliver sat by the fire. His eyes, the color of the sea, reflected the dancing flames. He was listening intently to an old Native American named Tatanka. Tatanka's face was a map of his life, etched with the wisdom of ages. His eyes, as deep and mysterious as the night sky, seemed to hold the secrets of the universe. Tatanka was sharing stories of his people, tales that had been passed down through generations by the elders. Oliver leaned closer, eager to learn. He had heard stories about the Native Americans from other travelers, but he wanted to hear them from Tatanka himself. There was something about the old man's presence that drew Oliver in, as if Tatanka's stories were weaving a tapestry of the past, and Oliver was the missing thread. As the night deepened, the fire crackled, sending sparks spiraling into the darkness. With each story, Tatanka wove magic, transporting them to different times and places. Oliver could almost feel the spirits of the ancestors watching over them, their presence as real as the fire that warmed his face. One story that Tatanka told was about a great flood that had happened many moons ago. It was a tale of immense power and tragedy, a reminder of the destructive force of nature that the Native Americans revered and respected. Another story was about a brave warrior who had defended his people against a powerful enemy. Oliver could almost hear the clash of swords and the shouts of battle as the warrior fought to protect his tribe. But there were also stories of peace and harmony, tales of how the Native Americans lived in balance with the natural world. Tatanka spoke of how his people had learned to read the signs of the seasons, to understand the language of the animals, and to respect the power of the elements. As the fire slowly died down, leaving glowing embers that mirrored the stars above, Oliver felt a deep sense of gratitude. He realized that he wasn't just listening to stories. He was learning about a way of life that was deeply connected to the rhythms of the earth. When the first rays of sunlight touched the horizon, painting the sky in soft hues of pink and gold, Oliver woke up feeling rejuvenated. The warmth of the fire still lingered in his bones, and the stories from the previous night echoed in his heart. As he rose, he couldn't help but smile. For the first time in what felt like forever, he felt a sense of belonging, a connection to something bigger than himself. He looked up at the sky, its vastness humbling him. He knew that he was part of a long line of travelers who had looked up at the same sky and found solace in its eternal beauty. In a village nestled between rolling hills and a sparkling river lived a little girl named Alara. Alara wasn't your ordinary girl. She had a heart full of curiosity and a mind that never stopped wondering. Every night before bed, she would gaze out of her window at the inky blackness of the night sky sprinkled with a million twinkling stars. But her eyes weren't gazing at the stars. Oh, no. Her eyes were searching for the wisps of smoke that curled and twisted against the backdrop of the darkening sky. For Alara, the night was alive with magic. And as the first stars began to appear, she knew it was time for the nightly ritual. As the moon climbed higher in the sky, casting long shadows across the village, a strange thing happened. At night, when everything was sleeping, a light smoke would rise from the chimneys of the houses. This smoke would float toward the sky and disappear, mixing with the stars. Each wisp, each curl was like a secret message from the stars. And as Alara watched, she imagined the stories they must hold. Who was making the smoke? Why did it appear only at night? And where did it go? The question swirled in her head like the smoke itself. One night, filled with more wonder than usual, Alara decided she wouldn't just watch. She would follow the smoke. So when her family was tucked in bed and the house was filled with soft snores, she put on a light jacket and crept out the window. The cool night air caressed her skin as she tiptoed through the sleeping village. The sound of crickets and the distant hoot of an owl were her only company. Then she saw it, a small cottage with a wisp of smoke curling from its chimney. It must be where it comes from, she thought. But when she got closer, she saw no one outside. The windows were dark and the door was closed. With a deep breath, Alara knocked on the door. She knocked again, louder this time, but there was no reply. The only sound was the crackling of the fire in the hearth. Curiosity burning within her, Alara pushed open the door and stepped inside. The cottage was small, with a table and chairs and a worn-out rug on the floor. In the corner was a rocking chair, and on the wall hung a beautiful hand-stitched quilt. It felt like someone had just stepped out, leaving everything right where they had been working or playing. Then Alara saw it, a small opening behind the quilt. She pushed it open and gasped. Behind the quilt was a ladder leading to a trapdoor in the ceiling. Someone had been hiding here, watching the stars, just like her. As Alara stood there thinking, a sudden gust of wind blew through the cottage, extinguishing the fire and plunging the room into darkness. Alara, her heart pounding in her chest, felt something brush against her leg. She looked down and saw a tiny kitten mewing softly. Had it been hiding all this time? As she scooped up the kitten, its purr rumbling like a miniature motor, she realized it wasn't smoke that filled the chimney, but stardust. Each night, the kitten climbed up the ladder to the trapdoor and watched the stars, bringing back stardust from its nightly adventures. The next morning, Alara returned home, her heart brimming with joy. She had discovered the magical secret of the stardust and the reason for the nightly smoke. But what she loved even more was the new friend she had made. The little kitten became her constant companion, and together they spent many nights gazing at the stars, their laughter echoing in the darkness. The wind whispered stories of faraway lands, carrying with it the scent of adventure. It danced through the tall grass, rustling the leaves and making them sparkle like tiny mirrors in the sun. The wind was alive with excitement, eager to share its tales of faraway places with anyone who would listen. In a small village nestled between rolling hills and a sparkling river sat an old wooden house. The paint on its walls was peeling, revealing the wood underneath. Vines had climbed up the side, embracing the house as if giving it a warm hug. On the porch swing, an elderly woman sat rocking slowly back and forth. On the porch, her eyes were closed, her face wrinkled with age, and a serene smile played on her lips. She was listening to the wind, letting its stories wash over her like waves on a summer's day. Time passed, and the small towns started to grow. More houses were built, more people arrived, and the sleepy village became a bustling community. The wind continued to whisper its stories, but now there were fewer ears to listen. People were too busy with their lives, their work, their worries. They had built their homes to keep out the wind, to block out its tales of adventure. Windows were boarded up, doors were shut tight, and the wind was left to wander the streets alone. As the years went by, the old wooden house stood as a reminder of a time when people listened to the wind. It seemed out of place in the growing town, a relic of the past. One evening, however, as the sun began its slow descent, a young boy stood on the porch of the old house. His name was Thomas, and he loved listening to the wind. He would sit for hours on the porch swing, just like the old woman had done before him, and let the wind stories carry him away. Thomas's mother had told him tales of the village's history, of how it had once been a close-knit community where people sat on their porches in the evenings, sharing stories and laughter. But that was before the town grew, before people became too busy, too caught up in their own lives. Thomas sighed, wishing that he could bring back that sense of community, that he could somehow reconnect the people of the town with the wind and its stories. As if in response to his thoughts, the wind picked up, rustling the leaves in the trees and whipping around the house. Thomas laughed, his spirits lifting. Maybe he didn't need to reconnect the people with the wind. Maybe the wind was doing it all along. Suddenly, the sky was filled with the twinkling of lights. The wind grew stronger, carrying with it the scent of rain and a distant rumble of thunder. Thomas ran inside the house, his heart pounding with excitement. He didn't feel scared, not in the way that other people did when the wind howled and the thunder roared. No, Thomas felt a sense of anticipation, a thrill that sent shivers down his spine. He raced to the windows and pressed his nose against the glass, his breath fogging up the pane. Outside, the wind was a whirlwind of activity. It swirled and twirled, dancing with the trees, making them sway and bend. The old wooden house creaked and groaned, but it stood firm, a testament to its sturdy construction. Slowly, light began to appear in these towns. At night, the glow of electricity would make these towns sparkle like a child's toy. People would sit in their homes, talking about their dreams. They would watch the wind dance outside their windows, the rhythmic swaying of the trees a lullaby to their busy lives. And in the quiet moments, when the wind was still and the air was still, they would listen to the stories that had brought them, stories of faraway lands and adventures yet to be had. From the top of the hill, the view was spectacular. You could see the winding river below, the tall mountains in the distance, and the endless fields of swaying corn stretching as far as the eye could see. It was a beautiful sight, one that filled the heart with joy and the mind with peace. In the fields below, a lone figure was working. He was a young man with a strong, sun-weathered face and calloused hands that spoke of a life lived close to the land. His name was Ethan, and he had been working these fields for as long as he could remember. He knew every inch of this land, every twist and turn of the river, every peak and valley of the hills. This was his home, and he loved it with all his heart. He had come to this new land with his family many years ago, when the city they lived in had become too crowded and too noisy for them. They had yearned for a simpler life, closer to nature, further from the noise of the city. And so they had packed up their belongings and moved to this remote area, where they had started to build a new life for themselves. At first, it had been hard. They had to clear the land of trees and rocks, plant seeds, and wait patiently for the crops to grow. But as the years passed, their hard work had paid off. Now they had a beautiful farm with fields of corn that stretched as far as the eye could see. As Ethan worked in the fields, he couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction and contentment. He loved the feel of the sun on his skin, the smell of the freshly turned soil, and the sound of the birds in the trees. It was a simple life, but it was a good life. One day, as Ethan was working in the cornfields, he noticed something strange. The corn stalks seemed to be swaying in the wind, not in their usual gentle rhythm, but in a way that was almost hypnotic. At first, he didn't think much of it. But as he continued to work, he realized that the sound was growing louder. Curious, he stopped his work and listened more closely. The sound was coming from the north side of the field, where the corn stalks were swaying back and forth in a strange, eerie way. As he walked towards the sound, he couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. When he finally reached the spot where the sound was coming from, he was surprised to see that the corn stalks were moving in perfect unison, as if they were dancing to some unseen music. The sight was both beautiful and terrifying, and Ethan couldn't understand it. For a moment, he just stood there watching the corn stalks sway in the wind. Then, as if suddenly awakened from a dream, he shook his head and started to laugh. He realized that he was letting his imagination run wild, and that there was a perfectly logical explanation for what he was seeing. The wind must have picked up in the north side of the field, causing the corn stalks to sway like this. He had been so focused on the sound that he hadn't noticed the wind, and it had all seemed so mysterious and magical to him. As he continued to work in the fields that day, he couldn't help but smile. He had been so caught up in the mystery of the swaying corn stalks that he had forgotten the simple beauty of his surroundings. The wind was warm on his skin, the sun was shining brightly, and the birds were singing merrily in the trees. It was a good life, and as the crops grew around him, he knew that he was a part of something bigger than himself, something that had been going on for centuries. People had been growing crops on this land for as long as they had lived here, and he was just a small part of that tradition. As the evening drew near, Ethan finished his work and started to head back to the house. He walked slowly, taking in the sights and sounds of the farm. The corn stalks whispered secrets to each other in the wind, and the crickets chirped their evening song. It was a peaceful life, and Ethan wouldn't have traded it for the world. On this new land, people slowly started to grow crops. The corn stalks would gently sway in the wind. There was silence on the land, and the crops grew quietly. No noise, no rush. Just work from morning to evening. You can call me the Sleep Queen because I am the one who gives you sweet dreams every night. By now, your eyes should be closed. I need you to focus on your breathing. And with the breath, all the stress goes away. And with the breath out, all the tension melts away. Just like that. You're getting relaxed. Listen to your heartbeat. It's just like a clock. Tick dot 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 dot. Don't you love that sound? It's the music of your soul. Let it carry you away to the magical land of dreams. I know you've had a long day. You've worked hard, and now it's time for some rest. You're in my care now. So let go of all your worries. Hand them over to me. I'll take care of everything. Just relax and enjoy the ride. Let your eyelids get heavy. I want you to feel the warmth spreading through your body. It's like a cozy blanket wrapping around you, keeping you warm and safe. Let yourself drift away into this wonderful feeling. Now I want you to imagine you're floating on a cloud. You're surrounded by fluffy pillows that support your head and your body. You're weightless here. There's nothing to worry about. Just let go and enjoy the feeling of being carefree. Feel the gentle rocking motion as the cloud cradles you. It's like a lullaby that will lull you into a deep sleep. Let the rhythm of the rocking relax you completely. Surrender to the soothing sensation and let it take you deeper into this peaceful state. I want you to look at those beautiful stars twinkling up in the sky. They're so distant yet so close. Reach out to touch them, but they'll lead you back to the present moment. They're just there to guide you into dreamland. As you gaze at the stars, let your mind wander freely. Think of anything you want. Maybe it is a fun day at the amusement park or a picnic in the park with your loved ones. Let these happy thoughts fill your mind and make you smile. And if any worries try to creep in, gently push them away. They're not welcome here. This is a place of peace and tranquility. Send those worries away and replace them with beautiful dreams. Here in Dreamland, you're safe and sound. I'm here with you every step of the way. I'll make sure you have sweet dreams all night long. So let go of your worries and rest easy. Now it's time to dive into your dreams. I'll see you in the morning when you wake up, but until then, goodbye. Here's to sweet dreams and a restful night's sleep. When you open your eyes tomorrow, a new day will be waiting for you. The sun will be shining brightly, ready to embrace you with its warm glow. The birds will be singing their cheerful songs, welcoming you to a brand new day filled with possibilities. As you wake up, take a moment to appreciate the gift of a fresh start. Let the morning light rejuvenate your body and mind, preparing you to take on the day with energy and enthusiasm. Remember, each day is a new adventure, and you are the hero of your own story. So wake up, my friend, and embrace all the wonderful things that await you today.